The forgotten sheet music. The autumn wind gusted through the streets of Boston, carrying with it the scent of rain and the promise of the season's first storm. Olivia Bennet clutched her violin case closer to her chest as she hurried toward Melody's cafe, her sanctuary before morning rehearsals. Her dark curls whipped around her face, temporarily blinding her as she struggled to hold onto the folder of sheet music tucked under her arm. "Just perfect," she muttered, glancing at her watch. 20 minutes until rehearsal, barely enough time for the caffeine fix she desperately needed after staying up until 3 in the morning practicing Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto. The piece that could make or break her career with the struggling Riverside Symphony Orchestra. As she reached for the cafe door, a particularly vicious gust tore the folder from her grasp. Dozens of pages of annotated music scattered like autumn leaves across the sidewalk and into the street. "No," Olivia cried out, frozen in horror as her meticulously marked music danced away on the wind. She set down her violin and lunged for the nearest sheets, watching helplessly as others floated toward traffic. A tall figure darted past her, chasing the wayward pages with surprising agility. The stranger moved with purpose, snatching sheets from the air and retrieving others from the edge of puddles before they could be ruined. Olivia scrambled to gather what she could reach, her heart pounding with panic. "I think I got most of them," a warm voice said several minutes later. Olivia looked up to find herself face to face with a pair of kind hazel eyes. The man before her held out a stack of rescued sheet music, slightly rumpled but miraculously intact. Rain had begun to fall, leaving droplets clinging to his dark hair and the shoulders of his simple gray jacket. "You saved my life," she said, accepting the papers with trembling hands. "Literally, my entire career was blowing away." He smiled, revealing a slight dimple in his left cheek. "Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto. Beautiful piece." Olivia's eyebrows raised in surprise. "You know it?" "My mother was a violinist," he explained, helping her organize the pages back into the folder. "I grew up listening to her practice." "I'm Nathaniel, by the way. Olivia Bennet." "I can't thank you enough, Nathaniel." "Let me buy you a coffee, at least." A sudden downpour answered before he could, sending pedestrians scurrying for cover. Nathaniel quickly removed his jacket and held it over her violin case and music. "Better get this somewhere dry," he said, gesturing to the cafe. "That Stradivarius copy looks too beautiful to risk." Olivia blinked in surprise again. Few people could identify violin makes on sight, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from the conductor. Rehearsal moved up 15 minutes due to the storm. "I'm so sorry, I have to run," she said, genuine disappointment in her voice. "Rehearsal emergency." Nathaniel nodded understandingly and helped her secure the music in her bag. Another time, perhaps. As she rushed away, Olivia realized she still had his jacket. She turned back, but Nathaniel had already disappeared into the crowd of umbrellas and raincoats, leaving behind only the lingering warmth of a kindness between strangers. Strings and symphonies. The Riverside Symphony Orchestra's rehearsal hall echoed with the sounds of instruments being tuned, a cacophony that always settled Olivia's nerves. She sat in her chair, second violin section, carefully unpacking her instrument while stealing glances at the gray jacket folded neatly atop her case. 3 days had passed since the sheet music rescue, and she'd found no way to return Nathaniel's jacket. "That's not your usual style," remarked Josephine, the first chair violinist and Olivia's closest friend in the orchestra. Her shrewd eyes took in the masculine cut of the jacket. "New boyfriend?" "Just a kind stranger," Olivia replied, fingers automatically finding positions on her violin's neck as she warmed up. "He saved my Tchaikovsky sheets from becoming street confetti." "And left his jacket behind? Sounds like a fairy tale setup to me." Josephine grinned before her expression sobered. "Speaking of fairy tales, we could use one around here." Olivia followed her friend's gaze to where Conductor Harrington stood in deep conversation with the orchestra manager, their expressions grave. Everyone knew the Riverside Symphony was in financial trouble. Ticket sales had declined steadily over the past 3 seasons, and their primary benefactor had withdrawn support last month. "Attention, everyone," Harrington called, tapping his baton against the stand. "Before we begin, I must inform you that our winter showcase may be our final performance unless we secure new funding." A heavy silence fell across the room, punctuated only by someone's sharp intake of breath. For Olivia, the orchestra wasn't just employment. It was family. These musicians had supported her through her father's illness, celebrated her small victories, created beauty together in times of despair. However, the conductor continued with a glimmer of hope. We have one interested patron who will be attending tomorrow's rehearsal. I expect absolute perfection. As they began working through Tchaikovsky's masterpiece, Olivia poured her emotions into each note. She thought of Nathaniel's comment about the concerto, the way his eyes had lit up mentioning his mother's music. There had been something so unpretentious about him, a quiet dignity that contrasted with the frantic pace of the city. That evening, Olivia stayed late, practicing until her fingers ached. When she finally packed up, she noticed a small inscription inside Nathaniel's jacket collar. "Remember the music when words fail, Mom." The sentiment pierced her heart. Walking home through the quieting streets, violin case in one hand and the mysterious stranger's jacket in the other, Olivia found herself humming the concerto's most challenging passage. For the first time in weeks, despite the orchestra's uncertain future, a strange sense of anticipation flickered within her, as if the universe had set something meaningful into motion. Beginning with scattered sheets of music dancing in the wind, the patron, the Kazi, rehearsal hall buzzed with nervous energy as musicians arranged their sheet music and polished their instruments to gleaming perfection. Olivia's stomach twisted with anxiety, not only for the orchestra's uncertain future but also because she'd brought Nathaniel's jacket, hoping their potential donor might know him somehow. "There he is," whispered Josephine, nodding toward the entrance where Conductor Harrington was greeting someone. "Our potential savior." Olivia glanced up, her bow nearly slipping from her fingers. Standing beside the conductor, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that transformed his appearance entirely, was Nathaniel. Their eyes met across the room and his serious expression softened into that same gentle smile she remembered from the coffee shop. "You know him?" Josephine whispered, noticing Olivia's reaction. Before she could respond, Harrington called the orchestra to attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mr. Nathaniel Reed, founder of Reed Technologies and our prospective benefactor." Whispers rippled through the musicians. Even Olivia, who rarely followed business news, recognized the name. Reed Technologies had revolutionized renewable energy storage systems, and its founder was notorious for his privacy and selective philanthropy. Throughout the rehearsal, Olivia felt Nathaniel's eyes following her movements. She focused on her playing with renewed intensity, letting her violin express what words couldn't. When they finished the concerto, his applause led the room. After Harrington dismissed them, Olivia lingered, carefully packing her violin as the hall emptied. She sensed his approach before she heard his footsteps. "Your playing is exceptional," Nathaniel said quietly. "You connect with Tchaikovsky in a way that reminds me of my mother." Olivia turned, holding out his jacket. "I've been hoping to return this, though I never imagined it belonged to a tech billionaire. Just Nathaniel, please." He accepted the jacket, their fingers brushing momentarily. "I was going to leave a note at the coffee shop, but then I heard about the orchestra's situation from an old friend in the symphony board." "So you decided to save us?" Olivia asked, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Nathaniel's gaze turned wistful. "My mother never had the opportunity to play with a professional orchestra. Her talent was cut short by illness." He gestured around the hall. "Places like this should be preserved. The world needs music that speaks to the soul. Is that why you're here? For the music?" Olivia asked, sensing there was more. His eyes met hers with unexpected vulnerability. "Initially, but I found myself hoping I might see you again too." Outside the concert hall, twilight painted the sky in shades of violet and gold. Nathaniel hesitated, then asked, "Would you join me for dinner? There's a small Italian place around the corner where we can discuss the orchestra's future, and perhaps return to that rain check on coffee." For the first time in months, Olivia felt a flutter of something bright and hopeful unfurling within her chest. "I'd like that," she replied, stepping into the evening beside him. Crescendo of complications over the next few weeks. Olivia's life transformed like a symphony, shifting from adagio to allegro. As Nathaniel's official patronage of the Riverside Symphony was announced, her evenings filled with private dinners, walks through moonlit parks, and conversations that stretched until dawn. She discovered a man whose wealth contrasted sharply with his humble demeanor. A brilliant mind who could discuss quantum physics one moment and passionately debate the emotional nuances of Dvořák the next. But as their connection deepened, discordant notes began to intrude upon their harmony. "You should have told me about the charity gala," Olivia said one evening after discovering through orchestra gossip that Nathaniel had donated $5 million at a black tie event she hadn't known about. They sat in his penthouse overlooking the city lights, a view that still made her breath catch. Nathaniel's expression clouded. "It wasn't important." "Not important. Nathaniel, that's more money than I'll see in several lifetimes." Olivia set down her wine glass with more force than intended. "Sometimes I feel like you're living in two separate worlds and only letting me visit one of them." He moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection fragmented across the glass. "The business world isn't real to me. It's a game I learned to play, nothing more." "It's still part of who you are," she insisted. "A part you keep hidden." "The last person I let into that world was only interested in what she could gain from it," Nathaniel replied, his voice low and edged with old pain. "Rebecca used our relationship to secure investments for her family's business, then disappeared once she had what she wanted." Understanding dawned on Olivia. "So that's why you appeared at the orchestra in jeans that first day. You were hiding. I find people show their true nature when they don't know my net worth." His eyes found hers in the reflection. "You treated me with kindness when I was just a stranger in the rain." The revelation should have comforted her, but instead, it awakened Olivia's deepest insecurities. "And now? Am I just the humble violinist in your philanthropy story? Your mother's replacement muse?" Nathaniel turned, hurt flashing across his features. "How could you think that?" "Because I don't belong in your world, Nathaniel. Last week I couldn't afford to repair my bow. Meanwhile, you casually donate millions without mentioning it." She gathered her coat, suddenly feeling suffocated by the luxury surrounding her. Maybe some gaps can't be bridged no matter how beautiful the music between us. As she left, neither spoke the words trembling on their lips, that despite their differences, something profound had taken root between them, something neither was ready to lose. Harmony of hearts. 3 weeks passed without a word between them. Olivia threw herself into rehearsals as the orchestra prepared for their winter showcase, now secure thanks to Nathaniel's endowment. Yet despite the orchestra's revival, her playing lacked the passion that once defined it. "You're hitting all the right notes," conductor Harrington told her after rehearsal, "but the music has no soul. Whatever's troubling you, Olivia, resolve it before the showcase." That night, alone in her apartment, Olivia opened her violin case and found a small velvet box she hadn't placed there. Inside lay an antique silver pendant shaped like a treble clef attached to a note. "Some melodies stay with us forever. The symphony isn't complete without you." Before she could process her emotions, her phone rang, Josephine's panicked voice cutting through her thoughts. "The concert hall is flooding. Broken water may. Everyone's trying to save the instruments and music library." Olivia rushed through the rain-soaked streets, arriving to find chaos. Water poured into the basement where irreplaceable original scores and historical instruments were stored. Among the volunteers forming a human chain to evacuate the treasures, she spotted Nathaniel, soaked to the skin, his expensive suit ruined as he waded through ankle-deep water. Their eyes met across the room. Without hesitation, she joined him, working silently side by side until the danger had passed. As dawn broke, they found themselves alone in the now empty hall. Exhausted but successful, the orchestra's legacy preserved. "I'm sorry," they both said simultaneously, then laughed, breaking the tension. "I've been afraid," Nathaniel admitted, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Not that you wanted my money, but that you wouldn't want me once you saw all my broken pieces." The lonely child who found solace in his mother's music. The man who built walls to protect himself. Olivia stepped closer, her hand finding his. "And I feared I wasn't enough, that I was just a temporary character in your story. But I was wrong. We're writing this melody together." "When I first heard you play," Nathaniel said softly, "I recognized something I thought I'd lost forever. That feeling when music bypasses all barriers and speaks directly to the soul. You brought that back to me, and you reminded me why I play," she whispered. "Not for perfection, but for connection." In the golden morning light streaming through the concert hall windows, they stood together, the billionaire and the violinist, no longer defined by their differences but bound by something far more powerful, Some of the greatest symphonies, Nathaniel murmured, drawing her close, begin with instruments that seem to have nothing in common until they find their harmony. And as their lips finally met, Olivia knew that this was their true cadence, not an ending, but the beginning of a composition uniquely their own.